There is something happening right now in thousands of apartments and bedrooms across the world. Someone is sitting alone at their desk, it's past midnight, everyone else is asleep, and for the first time all day, they feel like themselves. The to-do list that felt paralyzing at 2 in the afternoon suddenly feels manageable. The creative project they kept postponing? They're 3 paragraphs deep into it. The world outside is quiet, the notifications have stopped, and something inside them has finally exhaled. If you've ever lived inside that feeling, you already know it's not just preference. It feels like necessity, and there is a profound psychological reason for that. The night doesn't just give you silence. It gives you something far more valuable. It gives you back yourself. Let's start with something psychologists call revenge bedtime procrastination. The term sounds almost humorous, but what it describes is deeply human. After spending an entire day responding to other people's urgency, answering emails before you've had coffee, sitting in meetings that could have been messages, adjusting your pace to someone else's rhythm, your mind arrives at midnight still carrying a quiet, unresolved hunger, not for food, not even really for rest, for autonomy, for the feeling of choosing something simply because you want to. So you stay up. You trade sleep, which your body genuinely needs, for a few hours that feel entirely yours. And here's what makes this psychologically fascinating. Those hours that technically belong to tomorrow, the ones your alarm clock will make you regret in 6 hours, they produce a dopamine response, reclaiming time that wasn't supposed to be yours, triggers the same neural reward system that activates when you accomplish something. You're not just procrastinating, you're self-medicating a day's worth of lost agency. And that's important to sit with because it reframes everything. The person who can't seem to start working until 11 at night isn't undisciplined. They've spent all day operating inside other people's expectations, and the night is the only space left where they're allowed to just be. But there's a second layer to this, and it's where it gets even more interesting. If you've ever done deep work late at night, truly deep work, the kind where you look up and 2 hours have passed, you've experienced what psychologists call a flow state, and you might have noticed something. Flow almost never arrives on command at 2 in the afternoon, but it shows up almost reliably at 2 in the morning. The reason has less to do with the clock and more to do with what the clock represents. At 2 in the afternoon, the world is watching. Your inbox is open. Your colleagues are 3 desks away. Your phone carries the ambient possibility of interruption at any moment. Even when no one is actually watching you, your nervous system behaves as though they are. And that low-grade social surveillance, the constant background awareness of being observable, is cognitively expensive. It keeps a part of your brain on guard, which means a part of your brain is never fully available for the work. At 2 in the morning, that surveillance collapses. There are no emails coming in, nobody is going to call, nobody expects anything from you right now, and in that vacuum of zero societal expectation, something in your mind finally unclenches. The inner critic, the voice that says this isn't good enough yet, someone's going to see this. What if I get it wrong? Quiets down, not because you've resolved anything, but because the audience has gone to sleep. And that silence? That's not just comfortable, it's functionally different. It creates the internal conditions that daytime, with all its noise and visibility, structurally prevents. This connects to something worth understanding about perfectionism, especially the kind that masquerades as procrastination. During the day, tasks feel permanent. An email you send at noon will be read immediately. A document you submit at 3 p.m. will be judged by end of day. Everything carries the weight of real-time consequence. But late at night, there's a psychological sleight of hand that happens. The work doesn't feel final yet. You're not submitting anything tonight. Nobody's reading this until morning, and that temporal buffer, that gap between creating and being seen, lowers the psychological stakes just enough for you to begin. This is actually why so many writers, artists, and deep thinkers have historically been nocturnal. It's not because creativity has a biological preference for darkness. It's because darkness removes the conditions that make creativity feel dangerous. If you find this kind of deep dive into human psychology useful, take a second right now and subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who'd benefit from this kind of content. Now, there's another psychological mechanism at play here that doesn't get talked about enough, and it has to do with what you might call an invisible wall strategy. When you work late into the night, there's a quiet, often unconscious comfort in knowing that even if you finish something, no one can respond to it until morning. Your work exists in a kind of protective holding space. You've done it, but it hasn't entered the world yet. And for people with high sensitivity to criticism, or people who've been conditioned to associate visibility with judgment, that gap is psychologically essential. The night becomes a buffer zone between creation and consequence. It's worth noting here that this is genuinely adaptive up to a point. The brain finds a workaround for the conditions that block it, and that workaround produces real output, real creativity, real relief. But the cost is real too. Chronic sleep displacement, even in people who feel functional on 6 hours, accumulates cognitive debt. The cortisol regulation that sleep handles doesn't get negotiated away just because your nights feel productive. The body keeps score even when the mind feels invincible at midnight. So the question worth asking isn't, how do I stop being a night person? That's the wrong question, especially if the night is genuinely when you do your best thinking. The more honest question is, what is it about the nighttime environment that works for you, and can any of it be reconstructed during the day? Because what you're actually protecting is a set of conditions: low external stimulation, no perceived surveillance, freedom from interruption, and a sense of personal ownership over your time. None of those conditions are exclusively nocturnal. They're just easier to find at night because the world has agreed to leave you alone. Some people create those conditions through noise-canceling headphones and a closed door. Some do it through a specific morning ritual before the rest of the household wakes up, a kind of manufactured quiet that carries the same psychological signature as late night. Some use body doubling or study with me videos to get the social regulation they actually need without triggering the self-consciousness that comes with real social visibility. The deeper takeaway here is this: understanding why you work best at night isn't about justifying a sleep schedule that your doctor might side-eye. It's about recognizing what your mind is actually seeking: safety, agency, silence, the freedom to be imperfect in private. Once you see it clearly, you can start meeting that need more deliberately and with less collateral damage to your sleep, your health, and your mornings. And that's something worth subscribing for. By the way, if you want to keep understanding the hidden patterns in how your mind actually works, not just how productivity culture says it should, like this video if it named something you've felt but never quite had words for. The night owl isn't broken. They've just found the only hours where the world gets quiet enough for them to think. The real work isn't changing when they work. It's understanding why those hours feel like the only ones that belong to them, and slowly, thoughtfully reclaiming a few of those same conditions during daylight too. Because you deserve to feel like yourself at noon as much as you do at midnight.